Good Sunday morning, everybody. Chris here with High Seas Cruising, and welcome to the Cruise News. Got several stories for you today, and we're going to start with the story from P&O Cruise Lines. Now, y'all going to have to give me your opinion on this story. I've read it, and I don't know, I'm kind of split on what I think is right and what I think is wrong. But let's get into the story first. So, there were two individuals that were escorted off of a P&O cruise ship on embarkation day, and the reason they were taken off of the cruise ship is because they were both blind, and P&O Cruise Line says this was for health and safety reasons. Now, according to P&O Cruise Lines, they said, while we want all our guests to have a wonderful time with us, clearly the safety and well-being of all on board is our priority at all times. We are so sorry that these guests were unable to travel with us, and we have offered them a full refund for their holiday, including any expenses incurred. Now, that was directly from P&O Cruise Lines. Now, these two individuals said that they were basically put into a room, escorted off the ship. It was humiliating. They felt like criminals because they were taken off of the ship. They were sent back home, and apparently they even got a cancellation charge on their cruise before P&O came back, and gave them a full refund. So they actually tried to, charge them a little bit. And that may have just been an automatic system thing, and then P&O went back and corrected it. But still, after just getting kicked off a cruise ship, then you get charged before P&O makes it right and gives them all their money back. Kind of adds a little insult to injury. But I guess here is where the dilemma kind of comes up. Should two blind people be allowed to actually cruise without anybody there to assist them? Now, I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that a person that is vision impaired has any issues going through life and doing anything and everything they want to do. Not saying anything remotely like that. And I believe that two people like that could easily get around a cruise ship just like they get around any place else. But I guess this is where I would say that perhaps safety is an issue and safety is a concern. Not necessarily their ability to get around the cruise ship, but the other passengers that are also on board the cruise ship. Look, if you guys have ever taken a cruise, you get some of those places, it's crowded. People are bumping, just stopping, they run into each other. They're not looking where they're going. So I think that there would possibly be a safety and risk issue from other passengers. What if they bump into them, knock them down, push them out of the way, create all kinds of other issues and problems, not necessarily on purpose, but cruise ships, they can get a little bit crowded sometimes, getting on and off the ship at cruise ports. You got to be able to watch your footing when you hit those gangways sometimes. And if they're traveling without any assistance whatsoever, I could kind of see where the cruise lines doesn't necessarily want the liability, and so they're saying it's a safety issue. But on the other hand, I also see where that we have two passengers that simply wanted to go and enjoy their cruise vacation, and was it really right for the cruise lines to not allow them to do so? So that's why I say I can see both sides of the argument, and I'm just not 100% sure, honestly, which one is really right. But I guess at the end of the day, the cruise lines always have to go on the side of safety. And according to P&O, that is where this decision came from. But you guys let me know what you think about this one. Should they have been allowed to cruise? Should they have possibly, had somebody with them to assist them if there was any kind of problem? Or do you think the cruise line was right? I said, I'm just not 100% sure on this one myself. Next, we have 3 more cruise cancellations for the Norwegian Epic. Now, all these cancellations will be in 2025, the spring of 2025, and Norwegian has canceled them so the ship can go into dry dock for refurbishment. And the affected voyages will be April the 15th, April the 20th, and May the 5th in 2025. Okay, so those are going to be the 3 voyages that are canceled. Norwegian is giving all the guests a 100% full refund if they've already booked for the cruise, plus a 10% discount in the form of a future cruise credit. So at least Norwegian is giving plenty of notification for these cancellations. Now, these are sailings over in Europe, and they go along with 13 other voyages that Norwegian has already canceled for the Norwegian Epic. So we have a total of 16 canceled cruises for the Norwegian Epic all over in Europe. Now, Norwegian had announced this back at the end of May in 2023 that they were canceling the Norwegian Epic's European season and instead was going to redeploy her into the Caribbean. So a total of 16 cruises canceled for the Norwegian Epic. And finally, Norovirus. Yep, we've been seeing more and more stories about Norovirus popping up on cruise ships, particularly on celebrity cruise lines recently. Those are the ones that are making the news. And of course, you know, the news, they have those headlines on there. Outbreak on a cruise ship. Horror on a cruise ship. I saw one that said explosive diarrhea on a cruise ship. I don't know why, but the news people just really love to write articles about things exploding out your behind while you're on board a cruise ship. But yes, you will have cases of norovirus on cruise ships. And yes, if you get norovirus, you're going to be having a bad day because, yeah, it is true. You may have stuff shooting out both ends. You're going to have some stomach pains. Now, according to the CDC's website, just in case you don't know, norovirus is a virus that causes diarrhea and vomiting. The illness is highly contagious, and people can get infected by interacting directly with someone who is infected, consuming food or water that is contaminated, or by putting unwashed hands in their mouths after touching contaminated surfaces. Symptoms of norovirus can include stomach pains, nausea, headache, body aches, and fever. So while you hear about cruise ships and norovirus in the news all the time, and like I said, it's uncomfortable for those that get it, it's really not it really is just a tiny, tiny percentage of the actual norovirus cases that happen worldwide. And they go on to say that while norovirus is often associated with cruise ships, those represent a tiny minority of norovirus outbreaks, while the vast majority are in healthcare settings like nursing homes. But the news doesn't want to report those. They just like to report on what goes on cruise ships. They like those, flashy titles. Outbreaks at sea, horror on cruise ships. No matter what happens, they love those titles. So that's what you actually see if you go in and read news stories. But like I said, norovirus is a teeny tiny majority of cases. You can get it in nursing homes. Kids get it in school. When I grew up, I kind of remember it being, the 24-hour stomach bug. That's what I always knew it was. That's norovirus. That's a form of norovirus. There are many different forms that make up the norovirus, but yeah, you remember growing up, the 24-hour stomach bug coming out both ends. It really sucks. You drink a lot of fluid and it goes away. Norovirus. So the biggest thing we can do as cruisers is going to be prevention. And the best thing you can do for prevention is wash your hands. That's it. Super easy, super simple. Wash your hands. While it sounds super easy and it sounds super simple, you'd be surprised. On your next cruise, do this a little bit of an experiment. If you go up to the buffet, we'll just pick the buffet. Hang out near the door for a couple minutes where the hand washing stations are and watch and see the number of people that will walk right by them and not wash their hands. And that is a way that norovirus can spread, because if they touch something contaminated, they don't stop and wash their hands with soap and water. They go in there and touch all of the serving utensils as they're getting themselves food. Now every person that comes along and touches them after them has now been contaminated. And like I said, the simple protection is washing your hands frequently with soap and water. Alcohol-based hand sanitizers don't work very well for norovirus, so soap and water is the way to go. So wash your hands every chance you can get, and it will help prevent it. Because while it's not deadly, while it's not going to kill you, in the majority of cases, you're going to be fine once it passes through your system. But if you're on your cruise, enjoying your wonderful vacation, and then right in the middle of it, you got to spend, a day or two hanging out in the bathroom in your cabin because you can't get away from it, that's a bad day. That's a bad vacation, and that's a bad memory you don't want to take home over something that could have been prevented had somebody just simply washed their hands. And it's got to be every chance you get. Because walking through a cruise ship, you could say, hey, I just washed them in my cabin before I headed up to the buffet. Yeah, but you probably touched, a door, a railing. You touch buttons to, ride the elevator up and down. The railing, if you walked on the stairs, you touch things, which means you risked contamination before you got there. You have to wash them immediately right then and there at the door. If you go to the restroom, you wash your hands. Every opportunity you can, wash your hands. That is the absolute best prevention for norovirus so you don't get sick. Because if you watch people, you're going to see the cruise line, the crew members, they are cleaning, but they can't clean every spot, every single second, every single time someone touches it. And honestly, at the end of the day, the biggest spreader of the norovirus is the hygiene of the cruise passengers on board the ship. Like it or not, that's really more what spreads it than anything else. So wash those hands. And that's going to be our cruise news for this Sunday morning. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If you have, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you haven't done so yet, do me a favor and hit subscribe. It is free to do so. Helps our channel grow. Let you know anytime we put out a new video. Hope everyone out there is having a really great day. And like always, we will see you out on the high seas.